Championship made its annual pilgrimage to Botswana in September for the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race. Organised by the Four-Wheel Drive Club of South Africa, the Desert Race is the major sporting and social occasion of the year in Botswana and is the only marathon event on the championship calendar.
In a departure from the norm, the Desert Race was this year based 25 kilometres west of Gaborone at Kumakwani, where a Dakar-type bivouac was hewn out of the African bush to house race headquarters, the pit area and designated service point. The establishment of the Kumakwani site was a joint community effort with planning for the Desert Race a major logistical exercise.
We've been planning this thing for now 9 months. It's the biggest sporting event in Botswana. We have a prime team of 12 and an extended team of about 48 people on the ground at the moment. Supported by, we've got 230 police officers, 12 medics and countless numbers of government employees all helping us to make this race happen.
The Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race moved to Botswana in 1991 and over the years has undergone radical change. Ford stalwart and multiple winner Neil Woolridge turns back the clock.
It's changed tremendously. I mean, if we see what we've got today compared to what we had in the old days, in the previous years, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you just got to look around, you see all the marquees, all the big transporters, the organisation, the tents, the food, TV, radios. It's unbelievable. It's evolved so much. It's difficult to believe when you look back the ones you did do compared to what is now. It's chalk and cheese.
This year's event kicked off with a draw for start positions on the Donaldson Prologue. The Prologue is a race within a race to determine grid positions on the main event, and in what turned out to be a lucky omen for the rest of the weekend, RFS BMW crew Hannes Grobler and Henny Terstegen drew number 1 on the road.
Without a win on their own event since 1999, the weekend got off to a good start for Toyota, with the Team Castrol Toyota pair of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton posting the fastest time on the Donaldson Prologue in the SP Class Toyota Hilux. Run over a 72-kilometre route, the Prologue would also give competitors a taste of the sort of conditions they could expect over the rest of the weekend. There was a boost for Team Ford, with former winners Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer second fastest in the Ford Ranger TDCI. Toyota, Ford, Nissan and BMW were all represented in the top 10, with the fastest time in Class D going to Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. Another boost for Ford saw teenage Desert Race debutant Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable set the fastest Class E time.
In the special vehicle category, Class P, championship leaders Johan van Staden and James Rousseau were number 1 on the road, with the Prologue about to produce a shock result.
The Polokwane pair of Naeem Musaji and Rehan Badhanya caused a stir when they blitzed the rest of the field to win the Donaldson Prologue. Kali and Quinton Sulwald and Bevan Bertholt and Dani Stassen rounded out the top 3, with championship leaders Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau 5th. Archie Rutherford and Mike Lawrenson led the Class P contingent, and in Class B, 3 seconds separated Bez and Lindy Besadenhout and Kutsia Labaskachni and daughter Sandra.
For first timers, the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race is a culture shock. Neil May and Leon Miller are newcomers in Class A in the ABSA Championship, but weren't too concerned about what lay ahead.
Ons is van die Noordwes provinsie, Maritsani, die dorp. Boer daar, en ons het 'n sleepwaarfabriek en MRZ trailers. Wat maar besig is en aan die gang is. En ja, ons het hierdie jaar begin met die karre se off-road kampioenskappe. En dis ons eerste desert, maar die kompetisie is hard. Dit is hard, dit is nie speletjies afvoer nie. Jy moet weet wat jy doen en dan die route is konsentrasie. Jy moet kyk wat jy doen.
There was an air of expectation and tension as the countdown started to the first racing section. Multiple Desert Race winner Hannes Grobler was again a favourite with the local media and with huge crowds lining the start. Botswana's Minister of Tourism sent Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton on their way at the head of the field.
Racing Section 1 on Saturday produced fluctuating fortunes and drama in the production vehicle category. A tremendous battle soon developed at the front of the field between the 3 Toyotas and the RFS BMW of Grobler and Terstegen. The Team Castrol Toyota crews of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton and Duncan Foss and Rob Howie took turns at leading, with the 2 factory cars harried through the day by championship leaders Chris Visser and Jaapie Baardnost in their RFS Toyota Hilux, who went to Botswana with 2 wins under their belts already this season.
Local hero Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege took the fight to the Toyota crews, and at the end of the day, the four cars were separated by less than 3 minutes. The ever-cheerful Grobler first won the desert race way back in 1986 and then had to wait until 2002 to score a second win. Grobler and Richard Leek then completed a hat-trick of wins in 2004, with Grobler picking up another win in 2006 with François Jourdan. All 5 of Grobler's wins came with Nissan, but the switch to BMW had done nothing to dim his popularity among Botswana's motorsport mad fans.
Behind the top 4 SP finishers George Sparkhuisen and David van Wyk in the AIM Toyota and Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux rounded out the top 6 in the SP class. The Atlas Copco team were going like a train when a slight mishap saw them join the Roly-Poly Club. A little irony saw the pair pulled back on their wheels by Berthold's brother Bevan, and they then completed a difficult day with dodgy visibility from a rather damaged windscreen.
Toyota's hold on top 10 places was strengthened by Peter Ruthven and Rudy Brits in the Rubicon Toyota Hilux, with Terence Marsh and former winner Bux Carolyn doing well to fight back after missing the Donaldson prologue with a damaged gearbox. Under the circumstances, it was a courageous effort by the Regent Racing Nissan Navara crew. Not so lucky were Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schalthammer, who were forced to retire with a broken turbo wastegate, and the longest run of consecutive finishes in the ABSA series came to an end when Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson rolled the second Regent Racing Nissan Navara.
The tight route also took its toll on other SP class competitors. After a podium finish last year, Pretoria crew Christian de Plooy and Henk Janse van Vieren were early casualties in the RFS Toyota Hilux, and the Rustenburg father and son crew of Willem and Dana Vos were also forced to withdraw from their first desert race. Thomas Rundle and former winner Jean Moore joined the list of spectators when a blown motor halted progress for the Baden Tyre Services Nissan Navara, and veterans Yanni Visser and Joks Leroux were sidelined when oil pressure problems hit the silver dollar Toyota Hilux. A damaged radiator was to consign off-road legend Alfie Cox and Jürgen Schroeder to the list of non-finishers, along with Botswana crew Asman Sadiq and Shahat Fazaldin in another Nissan Navara.
A trouble-free run in the new 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, which, having only its second outing, saw Dion Venter and Ian Palmer completely dominate Class D. Built by former Toyota crew chief Mark Jourdan, the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux had more than 20 minutes in hand ahead of the Land Rover of Johan Steyn and Paul Jonkert, who were the only other Class D crew to see out the distance. A second Land Rover in the hands of Northern Region's Championship regulars Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen also fell by the wayside. There was plenty of local support for Botswana crew Arnold Mabile and Reginald Malomo in a Nissan hardbody, but they were also to join the list of day one casualties.
Local residents loved every minute of the desert race and were again out in force cheering on every car. They egged on the Toyota Hilux of Malcolm Koch and Johan Burger, which had a comfortable lead in Class E with the Rubicon Ford Ranger of Gerald Leroux and Willem Pretorius doing the chasing. Behind them, the Team Ford Ranger of Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable had lost four-wheel drive and a few body panels as well, and had dropped back to third in Class E.
The Nissan hardbody in the hands of Johan de Lange and Gert Usch was the only other Class E car to complete the day one route. Electrical problems finally forced Cape Town pair and Hanro Visser to call it a day in the Adenko Ford Ranger, and two 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux entries completed the list of non-finishers.
Day one honours in the special vehicle category belonged to championship leaders Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the Team Total Porter. They started fifth in the category, and a couple of retirements and minor problems for other runners saw them finish with a 4-minute advantage over the elegant fuel bat of Kali and Quinton Silwat. Third were Herman and Wichard Silwat in the Silwat Racing SVR with a steady run, taking another father and son crew in Nardis and Louis Alberts into fourth in Class A in their Rapsa bat.
There was plenty of action for the local enthusiasts, with the right front tyre problem costing Botswana driver Keith du Toit and Lesotho co-driver Ashley Thorne valuable time in the White Star Racing bat. After a gearbox problem on the Donaldson Prologue, a steady run took Century Racing flyers Colin Matthews and Alan Smith into 6th in Class A, with the colourful Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia 7th in the ex-Gary Berthold Porter, losing time with wire wrapped around a rear wheel and a damaged CV joint.
It was not a happy day for prologue winners Naheem Mosaji and Rayon Borhanya as they gradually dropped down the field to eventually end up ahead of Neil Meyer and Leon Miller, who were the last of the Class A finishers in the MRZ trailer Zarko Magnum. River crossings are a popular vantage point, but there was to be no joy for early race leaders Evan Hutchison and Darryl Curtis, with a steering problem sidelining the Motorite Revo 1. After a strong start to the race, Nick Harper and Kevin Hume were casualties in the Atlas Copco Bat, and there was disappointment too for Botswana brothers Mohammed and Faisal Noble and their supporters when they were forced into calling it a day in a Porter.
After starting 4th in the category, brothers Johan and Etienne Besadenhout gradually worked their way to the front of Class P in the Adenco Bat. A clean run saw the pair end up a touch over 3.5 minutes ahead of championship leaders Johan van Staden and James Rousseau, who were a disappointing 9th in class after being hit by a puncture on the Donaldson Prologue. It was a good recovery from the Pretoria-based Atlas Copco crew, who were 55 seconds ahead of Swaziland national John Thompson and standing navigator Zelda Niemand in a Zarko. Fine performances saw the 3 Class P cars running 4th, 5th and 6th overall.
At the age of 68, Bodo Berthold was the oldest driver in the race and, along with Philip Hurselman, was running 4th in Class P in a 2nd Atlas Copco Bat. Behind them, Marius Free was a motion sickness casualty, but along with Father Andre was a steady 5th in Class P in an aging Bat. Prologue winners Archie Rutherford and Mike Lawrenson had gradually dropped down the pecking order in the Regent Racing Jimco and were to finish the day a disappointing 6th in class. A broken CV joint sidelined veteran Richard Schilling and Keith Solomon in the Aceco, and a gearbox failure put paid to former Desert Race winner Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar in the Century Racing CR2.
2 veteran drivers were running at the front of Class B, with Kutsia Labuskaghni and daughter Sarah running ahead of former champion Giel Nel and Jaco Jonk, with both crews out in Racesonic Zarkos prepared by Nel. The 2 veterans took control of the class when early leaders Bez Besadenhout and daughter-in-law Lindy ran into problems in the Adenco Bat. It was also a day to forget for brothers Keith and Andrew Macanetti, who have had a miserable season so far. They were also forced to call it a day in another Zarko to chalk up their 5th non-finish in 6 starts.
After a tough day on a tough route with temperatures in the mid-30s, Toyota had 4 cars in the top 5 in the production vehicle category. 2 of them were the Team Castrol Toyota Works entries, and for team principal Glenn Hall, it hadn't been a bad day at the office.
Well, the vehicles have done an extremely hard day. It's a very rough race, actually, the desert race. We're out here and the terrain looks flat. Breaking through the bushes, tough going, 35 degrees. And on the second lap, it's the first time we've done a 2-lap race here in Botswana. So on the second lap, it's pretty cut up because you know the first 2 cars are now car number 60 again. So it's a tough day. It's a long race. We've done 500 Ks already. So the cars are going to have a pretty thorough going over tonight. But they've worked well today. 35 degrees in the cars, and the drivers and co-drivers are going to be pretty tired. They're going to feel it later, so I want them to do their business now. They've got to check the results, check over their details, and they must go home, shower, eat, get to bed. They've got a job to do tomorrow. We've got a job for the cars to do, so it's important they're fully rested so that the crew can celebrate in their performance tomorrow.
Drivers and co-drivers had done their jobs for the day. Now it was the turn of the technical teams to get their chargers back to fighting fitness for another long battle in more tough conditions on the morrow. With more than 500 kilometers of racing behind them, cars had taken a pounding, and for many of the hard-working service crews, it was going to be a case of burning the midnight oil.
In one of Europe's biggest leagues. Catch Wunderbar football every week in the Bundesliga. World football lives on Supersport, your world of champions. Brought to you by MTN, everywhere you go.
What is the Mold formula?
Is it knowing that here we are all even? Is it staying mentally strong when there is no room for error and every point counts? Is it driving for the team? Or risking it all to gain the championship advantage when the finish line is almost in sight? Formula One. Who will win the race for perfection in Korea? Exclusively live on SuperSport and proudly brought to you by Tiger Wheel and Tire.
With the sun rising over Kumakwani, it was another early morning start to the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race. Crews who survived the first 2 days were well rested and looking forward to more success over a final racing section made up of 2 loops of 207 kilometers.
I really hope so. We had a bit of a on-off season up to now, but last race 5th, now we're lying 5th in SP, so if we can keep it there, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, you know, this is a desert race. It's only over today, so we took our knock on Friday. We didn't do the section, and yesterday we had a great day. We had a steering rack problem which lost us another 20 minutes, but the car's in excellent nick. So if you start the race on Sunday and your car's in good condition, then you're in with a chance.
Yeah, it's a different route today again. Looking forward to it. It's here. It's a very sandy track. So yeah, we're gonna get out there and see how it looks.
We're lying 3rd in class, and it seems like we're something like 6th in specials, which is quite awesome for a Class P car, so we're very chuffed.
The plans for today is just to consolidate our position now and try and keep it as clean as possible, not make any mistakes. We had a good dice yesterday with the Regent SP, and we found ourselves a bit out of our depth because we were trying to chase cars that are not in our class. So I think our plan for today is just to take it home and get a good win because we really need the points this year.
Yes, yesterday was extremely tough. I don't know where Adri got all the turns and the shots and rocky sections and stuff from, but it was very nice. But if you asked me this question yesterday, I wouldn't agree on another one. But today is a different day, you know, and you've had a nice rest and you feel better, and we're still in it and we love it. We finished yesterday, so another 400 to go.
They are passionate about their motorsport in Botswana, and another huge and enthusiastic crowd were waiting for the action to restart. With less than 3 minutes separating the first 4 cars in the production vehicle category, there was going to be plenty of early pressure up front.
The pressure's there, but fortunately, coming from circuit racing background, you know, I'm quite used to the pressure. So I've got about 1:40 on Duncan, which is quite a healthy lead. It's going to be difficult once again trying to find the route and make the route. So just take it easy, try and have a clean run, not get any. Pretty much what I did yesterday, and let's see if we can bring it home in one piece.
In the days of fuel stops out on the route, Hannes Grobler being borne off into the bush by supporters was a sight to behold, and the fanatical following for the 5-times winner is still right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of fans here in Botswana, you know, and I know they like us to win, you know, but with a new baby like our new BMW, it's not that easy. But we're going to give it our best today and see where we come. The only thing is that we need to get to the end and get all the feedback we can to make the car better for the next half.
With 4 cars closely bunched together, the slightest mishap can mean disaster. A puncture the previous day dropped Duncan Force and Rob Howie from 1st to 3rd in one easy move.
There's 4 cars all within, I think, a minute of each other, and just like yesterday, it was a flat-out race for 500 Ks, and I was in the lead. I had a puncture, 2 cars passed me, and yeah, so now we currently 2nd, but as I say, there are 4 cars that are in the race at the moment.
This time round, it was clerk of the course Rex Borum who waved the cars away with spectators lined 4 and 5 deep on either side of the road as Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton got proceedings underway. Cars were flagged according to the finish times on racing sections 1, with only 3 seconds separating Toyota crews Duncan Foss and Rob Howie and championship leaders Chris Visser together with Jaapie Baardenhorst in 2nd and 3rd.
As Force predicted, it was flat-out racing from the word go, but the crowd crowd erupted when Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege took off in the RFS BMW X3. There was no doubt where the popular support lay, with the whole of Botswana willing Grobler and ter Steege to pull off a win in a new car that would be a crushing blow for Toyota, who were looking for their first desert race win in 11 years.
On the special vehicle front, Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau were looking to emulate the father and son team of Frans Chapak Jr. and C, who scored a hat-trick of wins in the late 90s. The team total pair were also looking to consolidate their precarious championship lead and had an advantage of 4 minutes over 07 winners and SA champions Collie and Quinton Sulwalt in the elegant field bat.
It did not take long for drama to strike. Overnight leaders Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were the first major casualties, with a broken gearbox sidelining the factory Castrol Toyota Hilux less than 40 kilometers into the route. That put reigning drivers champion Duncan Force and Rob Howie into the lead, with Force looking for a fourth successive desert race victory. With the dust always a problem, little gaps had opened up between the lead cars, with Chris Visser and Jappie Badenhorst now running in second place ahead of Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege in the RFS BMW. In only its fifth outing this season, the Beamer was surprising everyone with both its pace and reliability, and was now in a menacing third.
There were also early problems for Chris Visser and Jappie Badenhorst in the RFS Toyota Hilux. A mistake in the dust saw them clip a tree, and some damaged bodywork cost them valuable time. There was no shortage, though, of willing hands to help the reigning championship leaders get underway, but the episode cost them a place, and in a short space of time, positions at the front of the field had drastically changed.
Route director Andre Strauss considered the 207-kilometer final day route as the friendlier of the sections. As on day one, crews would complete the route twice, and Strauss warned of a sting in the tail in the form of a stretch of deep river sand.
The Castrol Toyota pair of Duncan Foss and Rob Howie were in the lead for the first time since a stint at the head of the field on the first racing section, which was ended by a puncture. They had a lead of around 2 minutes over Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege, who'd gone from fourth to second in the RFS BMW, with Botswana Muti once again seeming to be working for Grobler. Toyota's grip on 3 of the 4 first places at the overnight halt had slipped, with an intriguing cat-and-mouse game starting to develop between highly experienced crews on a route that was also starting to open up.
With an overnight lead of around half an hour over George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk in the AIM Toyota Hilux, championship leaders Chris Visser and Jappie Badenhorst were still in a comfortable third place. For all that their early mishap had proven costly, and they were now having to push hard after dropping around 6 minutes behind the lead car. With Grobler and ter Steege long gone, there was a slight advantage in that dust wasn't a problem for Visser and Badenhorst, and they had an open track ahead of them.
At the front of the special vehicle field, former SA champion Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau were sitting in the pound seats in the team total porter. After finishing 5th on the Donaldson Prologue, the first racing section had panned out beautifully for the 08 and 09 winners. With a lead of 4 minutes over Collie and Quinton Sulwalt, all they had to do was keep their concentration going and avoid any silly mistakes. There was never any doubt that the Sulwalts, winners of the Desert Race and SA champions in 2007, would throw everything into a late charge, but it was Variawa and Rousseau who held the high cards and could control the pace from a position of strength.
4th place in the Production Vehicle Championship saw George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk running around 29 minutes behind the leaders. The AIM Toyota Hilux wasn't sounding all that healthy, but Barkhuizen and van Wyk were still running at a good pace. They were being chased by Herman and Wichard Sulwalt, with the Sulwalt Racing SVR lagging around 15 minutes behind the pace being set by Special Vehicle leader Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, and the elegant field back and Quinton Sulwalt.
Road crossings and short sections of the route run on public roads were well manned by Botswana police and race officials, with crowd and traffic control of a high standard. Brothers Johan and Dion Besaidnout were still running at the front of the Class P field in the Adenko bat, and had just over 20 seconds in hand over championship leaders Johan van Staden and James Rousseau in their Atlas Comco bat.
The The impressive 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux of Dion Venter and Ian Palmer were still totally dominant in Class D. They had been under pressure from the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux of Gary Bertholdt and Andre Vermeulen and politely pulled over at the first opportunity to let the faster SB Class car go steaming past. Venter and Palmer were under no threat whatsoever from Johan Steyn and Paul Jonkert in the Land Rover running second in Class D. But Bertholdt and Vermeulen were in hot pursuit of George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk, with a couple of special vehicles between them and their prey. Behind the Atlas Copco entry, Swaziland-based John Thompson and Zelda Nimmond, standing in for regular co-driver Clinton McNamara, was still a solid third in Class P and were starting to come under a little pressure from Class A pair Nardis and Louis Alberts, who were rapidly making up ground in the Rapsabat.
The 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux of Dion Venter and Ian Palmer had picked up a slight brake problem and intermittent fuel starvation, but they moved up a place nonetheless when they went past Bodo Bertholdt and Philip Herselman in the Atlas Copco Bat, which also politely moved over to let through the quicker car. Despite what were niggly little problems, Venter and Palmer were strong candidates for a possible top 5 finish in the production vehicle category. The demise of Bertholdt and Herselman saw Marius and Andre Fourie pick up a spot in Class P, with Marius having overcome the motion sickness that bothered him the day before. Steaming up behind the Fouries were the Class A pair of Colin Matthews and Alan Smith in the Century Racing CR3. A little nudge let the Fouries know that they were there, and the Class P crew quickly moved out of the way.
Colin Matthews and Alan Smith are one of the quickest crews around in the ABSA series, and a few minutes down the road, the Century Racing pair caught up with the White Star Racing Bat of Keith Dutoy and Ashley Thorne. Another little tap to remind the crew up ahead that they were holding up proceedings was administered, with Smith frantically waving for the Botswana-Lesotho combination up ahead to get out of the way.
Discretion was the better part of valor for Dutoy and Thorne, who moved out of the way at the first opportunity that actually presented itself. While they're among the quickest crews in the game, Matthews and Smith are prone to reliability problems. After putting in the hard yards to get past the Fouries and the Dutoy-Thorne combination, that was about it for the Century Racing pair, who then pulled off the road with the recurrence of the gearbox hassles that plagued them on the Friday prologue. The body language in the car said it all.
A little further back in the field, Peter Ruthven and Rudy Brits were making steady progress in the Rubicon Toyota Hilux and picked up a place when they went past the Toyota Hilux of Class E leaders Malcolm Koch and Johan Berger. Koch's father Andre won the desert race when it was still based in the Freiburg area, and they started the day with a healthy lead of around 25 minutes over Gerald Leroux and Willem Pretorius in the Rubicon Racing Ford Ranger.
The father and daughter pairing of Kutsia and Sandra Labuschagne was still in control of Class B in the Raconic Zarko. They were happy too to let the Cobalt Racing Porter of Jimmy Zahos and Stefan Kutsia go blasting past, and there was a cool, calm and collected air in that Zarko cockpit.
Next in line for Zahos and Kutsia, who made changes to the Porter overnight and who were reveling in the more open route conditions, were Class E pair Gerald Leroux and Willem Pretorius, who were still running in a steady second place in Class E in the Rubicon Racing Ford Ranger.
Much of motorsport photography is being in the right place at the right time, with sandy riverbed crossings always likely to produce a little action. Veteran Gil Nel and Jaco Jonkwa under pressure from Class B crew Archie Rutherford and Mike Lawrenson, who were trying to recapture lost ground in the Regent Racing Jimco. Right on their tails were Sun City 400 winners Terence Marsh and Bucks Carolyn, who were also trying to make up ground lost by missing the Friday prologue when the Regent Racing Nissan Navara ran into a gearbox problem. A replacement gearbox was flown in from Johannesburg, but Marsh and Carolyn were on the back foot from the word go. Behind them, special vehicle prologue winners Naheem Musaji and Rayhan Bodhanya had caught Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable in a Ford Ranger still missing body panels, but with four-wheel drive restored.
Toyota Desert Race debutants Neil Mayer and Leon Miller were enjoying their first taste of the Desert Toyota race and were determined to make it to the finish in the MRZ Trailer Zarko Magnum. Behind them, early Class B leaders Bez and Lindy Besadenhout were running in a challenge category that carried no final classification or points. Their continued progress was thanks to Naeem Musaji, who lent them a spare tyre when they ran out of tyres through punctures. Behind the Adenko car, there was a little cameo performance from Class E and D backmarkers Johan de Lange and Gert Usch, and the Land Rover of Johan Steyn and Paul Jonker.
How to love your neighbor. Welcome them with open arms. Extend a friendly hand.
That is a fantastic catch.
Engage in conversation.
That was a plan. Well done. It worked.
The Proteas express a neighbourly welcome in this summer's first MTN One Day International Series. South Africa versus Zimbabwe. Enjoy your stay only on SuperSport. Broadcast brought to you by MTN everywhere you go.
This weekend on SuperSport. On Saturday, a place in the final is there for the taking in the first Absa Currie Cup semi-final. Then the Brazilians will be looking to stay on top of the points table when they host the informed Buccaneers. It's Sundowns versus Pirates. And a step closer to the Field of Dreams is only 80 grueling minutes away in the second Absa Currie Cup semi-final. Then on Sunday, Graham Smith and the boys take on neighbours Zimbabwe in what's sure to be an entertaining second ODI. The big guns on the ATP Tour serve up blistering tennis action in the much-anticipated final of the Shanghai Masters. And finally, the Merseyside derby between Everton and Liverpool is a 2 o'clock appointment you don't want to miss. Whatever sport you need, we've got it all on SuperSport.
The final section of the loop back to the designated service point at Kumakwani was again more open than had been the case for the Racing Section 1 route. Although it was the more user-friendly of the two, the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race invariably produces a stink in the tail.
At the front of the production vehicle category, Duncan Force and Rob Howie were keeping alive Toyota hopes of a first desert race victory since 1999. The Toyota pair had a cushion of just under 2 minutes on Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege, who were still running strongly in an RFS BMW X3 that had hardly missed a beat. After 33 years of driving Nissan products and a couple of outings in a Toyota Hilux at the start of the season, Grobler had to adjust his driving style to meet the requirements of a turbo diesel vehicle, and vast experience had made the transition look like a piece of cake. With Grobler and ter Steege in a menacing second place, the whole of Botswana was still holding its collective breath and hoping for a surprise win from their hero.
Behind the two lead cars, Chris Visser and Japie Badenhorst still had a tight hold on third in the RFS Toyota, carrying some extra signage from Silver Dollar. They were still around 6 minutes behind Foss and Howie and around 4 minutes behind the Grobler ter Steege BMW. Although the route on the final racing section had for the most part opened up, there were still sections where it was akin to travelling through a tunnel of bush. There were also plenty of obstacles that demanded extreme caution from the crews.
A little agility and climbing ability provides grandstand seats from which to watch the action, with Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau still firmly in control of the special vehicle category and on course for a hat-trick of wins on the desert race. A 4-minute gap over Cully and Quinton Silwald at the start of the day had been cut to less than 40 seconds, but catching and overtaking a car of equal performance are two completely different matters, and it was still advantage to the team total crew. Cully Silwald first won the South African Championship in the mid-90s, doing the navigating for brother Herman. After a lengthy sabbatical from racing, the Paraboa brothers are now competing successfully with their sons. Cully and Quinton won the Toyota Desert Race and the South African Championship in 2007, and Herman and Wichard Silwald recently scored their first win together on the 4x4 Megaworld 400 at Carnival City.
Steaming along behind the Silwalds were George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk, with the AIM Toyota Hilux still not firing on all 6 cylinders. For all that, their pace was still good, and the Silwald Racing LER of Herman and Wichard Silwald was not making much of an impression on the Toyota. Both Silwald cars finished in the top 3 at the 4x4 Megaworld 400, with a similar result in Botswana very much on the cards.
At the front of the Class P field, brothers Johan and Dion Besadenhout were still around 30 seconds clear of the Atlas Copco bat of Johan van Staden. John Thompson and Zelda Niemand, who was battling an eye infection, running a strong third in class. Thompson and Niemand were coming under pressure from Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen, who had their sights set on catching George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk.
The Potsa bat in the hands of the father and son pairing of Nandis and Louis Alberts was still running in a strong 4th place in Class A, and along with Boutard and Vermeulen had moved ahead of Class D leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. With a massive advantage at the head of the Class D field, Venter and Palmer were in a comfort zone and didn't have to worry about being caught by Marius Fourie and Father Andre, who was making steady progress in the PHB bat, which was running a strong 4th in Class P. Chasing after the bat were Jimmy Zahos and Stefan Kutsia in the Cobalt Racing Porter, with Neil Meyer and Leon Miller still busy with a workmanlike performance in the MRZ trailer Zarko. Behind them, Class E leaders Malcolm Koch and Johan Burger were being closed down by the White Star Racing bat of Keith de Toy and Ashley Thorne. For the Class E crew, trouble though was just around the corner.
When Malcolm Koch climbed out of the Toyota Hilux to have a close look at the right front of the vehicle, it was obvious that whatever the damage, it was serious. Looming up behind the stricken Toyota was the Maxxis tyre rack porter of Naeem Musaji and Rayan Badhanya, with the crew now minus spare wheels after helping out Baz and Lindy Besadenhout. Impressed by an active sportsmanship from the Polokwane crew, the Besadenhouts paid their entry for the Hima Motors 400 in the Free State.
And we were leading Class E by 30 minutes. End of this race. That's bad.
It was all over for Malcolm Koch and Johan Burger with a broken front strut signalling the end of the race. With nothing at stake, Baz and Lindy Besadenhout were having fun, and next to go past the unfortunate Koch and Burger were Class B leaders Kutsia and Sandra Labeskaghni. Following in their dust was Terence Marsh and Bucks Carolyn in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara, and behind them, the most galling sight of all for Malcolm Koch and Johan Burger. Gerald Leroux and Willem Pretorius now led Class E, with Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable all over the back of the Rubicon Ford Ranger.
Among the back markers, the Land Rover of Johan Steyn and Paul Jonker was still full of running, but the pair were now nearly 50 minutes behind Class D leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. Also still soldiering along were veteran Giel Nel and Jaco Jonk, who were now just over an hour behind Class B leaders Kutsia and Sandra Labeskaghni.
Back at the designated service point at the Kumakwani race headquarters, the first car to arrive for the compulsory 15-minute stop was the slightly worse for wear Team Castrol Toyota Hilux of production vehicle leaders Duncan Voss and Rob Howie.
Yeah, we've had a clean run. Car's brilliant. Rob's doing a great job finding the route because we're out in front. No problems with the car. Everything's good so far. So hopefully we can just carry on.
It's a little bit faster, quite tight, and especially because we were driving in the front, we had, just behind Duncan, we had to look for the road, but I think on the second lap it'll be even quicker.
Yeah, we were 3-4 seconds behind Duncan and we hit the first tree that's on the road, so yeah, what can you do? So, but yeah, we had to fix the door didn't close, didn't want to close, so we tried to close the door, and 6 minutes later we got on the road again. But yeah, the bucky feels fine, but we have some sort of electrical problem. We're losing power, so battery's running down, so try to see if it could fix it and then try again. We'll just have to finish.
As we went out the pits, we picked up a misfire. It actually started yesterday afternoon and we thought we fixed it, but it seemed to be back. So we're running on 5 cylinders all the way around back to here. Apart from that, everything is going well. Route is excellent, and yeah, we hope to just get it back to the finish this afternoon.
Yeah, 100%, no problems at all. A little bit of fuel pressure problems, but I think it's because we virtually ran out of fuel on this lap. So we're just going to add more fuel, check around in the car, and then we should be okay to go again.
Yeah, I think we're doing fine. You know, it's just we can't make up the time, so we're basically doing the same time as the leading guys. But yeah, we're having a trouble-free run. I think that will help us. We'll see now. If anybody's got any trouble, it's going to be now. So we're ready.
On the special vehicle front, the gap between Shamir Variawa and Sigrid Rousseau and Cully and Quinton Silwald had been drastically cut. It was a situation that left Variawa unperturbed.
Morning's been great. Obviously, new route. The tracks are not made, so we've been taking it easy. Not to make any mistakes, no punches. And I believe Silwald is right behind us, about 30-40 seconds. But it's fine because we had the halfway, no problems. And now the route is open, so we can give it a bit of wooma.
No, it was a good loop. We caught up to Shamir pretty quickly. We've been in his dust for the last 70 or 80 Ks. Going to push hard on the second loop, try and catch him up as quickly as possible and maybe get past. So that's the plan.
Hey, ja, nee, dit is 'n lekker dag, is 'n battle. Maar dis vinnig. Hierdie loop is vinnig. Dis sand. Ou moet konsentrasie. Jy moet konsentreer jou op pad. Anders dan gaan jy dit nie maak. Maar ja, nee, ons byt vas. Ons wil kyk waar ons kan klaarmaak.
It's been a very hectic day at the office, very hard, technical, but we're enjoying the race so far. Quite on the book. There is some open sections and nice straight where we can pick up some speed, but other than that, it's been fun and hard.
Oh, it's lovely. This side of the route is awesome. It's fast, it's beautiful, deep desert sand. It's absolutely beautiful. We're having a few problems, but not too serious. We'll see you guys just now.
I think it suits a special vehicle much better. It's a lot of straight, fast sections, the thick desert sand, the kind of stuff we like. I think the buckies are a bit slower today, so it's a very balanced race. Yesterday the buckies had the advantage, and today I think we've got a good advantage. We can hold it all together.
This Saturday, after a grueling season of fierce rivalry and breathtaking rugby, it all comes down to this, the semi-finals. Saturday, 16 October. It's non-stop power rugby on Supersport. Brought to you by ABSA. Today, tomorrow, together.
Loading. 40 over format. Bowling power play selected. Field set. Strike bowler activated. Delivery chosen. 12-man specialist response. Maximum aggression.
2 power plays, 13-man teams, 2 permanent substitutes, 3 hits, 40 overs. Cutting-edge cricket that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The MTN 40 starts 29 October. Live on your World of Champions. MTN, everywhere you go.
Die blaas van die Kaap take each other on for the bragging rights of the Cape Town. Make the circle bigger. Ajax versus Santos. Is dat vir jou gesê? We love it. It's Super Diski on Super Sport. Brought to you by ABSA.
With one loop of the race left, the 29th Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race was delicately poised in both the production and special vehicle categories. Anything could happen over the last 207 kilometers, and with the Desert Race's propensity to produce a sting in the tail, leading crews and their supporters were into what cricketers describe as the nervous 90s. The position at the front of the production vehicle field had not changed, with the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux of Duncan Foss and Rob Howie still sounding sweet and holding a 72-second advantage over the RFS BMW of Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege, who were now firmly in chase mode.
Championship leaders Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were still rounding out the top 3 in the production vehicle category, but the RFS Toyota Hilux had now dropped to more than 7 minutes behind race leaders Foss and Howie. The only factor working to their advantage was an open road ahead that was free of dust, and the pair could let the Toyota Hilux off the leash.
The more open route on the second racing section made life a little easier for the Special Vehicle Brigade. The Space Frame cars are nowhere near as agile as the SP class runners, and they battle in the tight stuff. Well aware at the designated service point that their lead had been drastically eaten into by Cully and Quinton Silwalt, race leaders Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau had upped their pace, and the gap was now just over a minute. The ball was now firmly in the Silwalt court, and the Palabora father and son team had to dig deep to come up with a big response.
Radio marshals strategically placed along the route keep track of the cars, with Herman and Richard Silwalt still around 15 minutes behind the 2 lead cars, and behind them, Johan and Dion Besadenhout were still in control of Class P, with the Adenko bat running sweetly. Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen had finally gone ahead of George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk, and were now a buffer between the Besadenhout brothers and Johan van Staden and James Rousseau, who were now nearly 2 minutes behind the Class P leaders. Gradually closing in on Van Staden and Rousseau were Nardus and Louis Alberts, who had been in a solid 4th place in Class A throughout the day. They had also moved past George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk, who had now dropped back to 5th overall in the production vehicle category in the Ailing AIM Toyota Hilux.
It was a beautiful day for a walk with the dogs, but in the BHP BAT Northern Regions Championship regular, Marius Free and Father Andre were hard at work, with the pair now trailing the Class P leaders by almost 11 minutes. The Frees had moved ahead of Class D leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer, who were still in a comfort zone in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota. Class D caters for 4 or 6-cylinder petrol engines with a maximum capacity of 4 litres or a diesel unit with a 3-litre capacity. The engine and body must be from the same model range as the chassis, and while power output is governed by a 30mm restrictor, extensive suspension modifications are actually allowed. Teams are also restricted to 4 new tyres per car per event and 8 tyres for races longer than 600 kilometres.
It had been an up-and-down day for Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia, with the Cobalt Racing Porter involved in intermittent skirmishes with local driver Keith Dutoy and Lesotho resident Ashley Thorne in the White Star Racing bat. A penalty for leaving the designated service point a couple of seconds early was to set them back, with the Zarco of Neil Meyer and Leon Muller still running strongly and closing in on the bat. Behind Meyer and Muller, the Raysonic Zarco of Kutsia and Sandra Labiskachny still had a tight hold on Class B, with a healthy lead over Gilnel and Jaco Jong in the sister car.
On the final loop back to the finish at Kumakwani, and there was now high drama with the RFS BMW of Hannes Robbe and Henny Terstegen leading the production vehicle category. A steering problem was hampering progress for the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux of Duncan Voss and Rob Howie, and the Toyota dream of a first win on their own race since 1999 was fading fast. Closing in on Voss and Howie were Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the RFS Toyota Hilux, with the championship leaders making rapid inroads into the comfortable lead previously held by Voss and Howie. The Premier SP class vehicles are custom-built cars, with a class open to a vehicle belonging to a production series anywhere in the world, with 2,500 vehicles sold in a consecutive 12-month period. Normally aspirated petrol engines with a capacity of up to 4.6 litres or 3-litre turbo diesel engines are permitted, with gearboxes, a 6-speed sequential unit nominated by the SA National Off-Road Car Racing Association. Extensive suspension modifications are also allowed in the SP class, but the body must be from the same production model as the chassis.
Unlike the upheaval in the production vehicle category, the status quo was unchanged among the special vehicles, where a near faultless performance had taken Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau to the brink of a third successive desert race win in the Team Total Porter. The championship leaders were controlling a gap of around 90 seconds to Cully and Quinton Silwald, who appeared to have shot their bolt in the Elegant Fuel bat. It had been a brave chase by the 2007 Desert Race winners and SA champions, but the Botswana event is like meat and drink to Variawa and Rousseau.
Behind the leaders, Herman and Wichard Silwald were assured of a podium place that would keep alive their championship hopes, and behind them, a terrific performance that kept Class P leaders Johan and Dion Besaidnout in the top 4 overall in an Adenko bat that had not missed a beat all weekend. Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen had made a solid recovery from their role on the first racing section, and they now had a tight grip on 4th overall among the production vehicles. Berthold and Vermeulen had teammates Johan van Staden and James Rousseau, with the pair having a tight grip on second place in Class P that would consolidate their championship lead. It had been a lonely day for Nardus and Louis Alberts in the Rapsa bat, and behind them the still misfiring AIM Toyota of George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk was hanging on to 5th place in the production vehicle category.
A late battle in the race had developed between 3 cars, with Class P crew Marius and Andre Fourie running just ahead of Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia in the Cobalt Racing Porter, in which Gary Berthold almost won the desert race a couple of years ago. Zaas and Kutsia had fought a running battle all day, with Keith Dutoy and Ashley Thorne in the White Star Racing bat, who were still unaware that they had picked up a penalty for leaving the last designated service point ahead of schedule. The skirmishes between the Porter and the bat proved that off-road racing is just as exciting and intense in midfield as the battle.
It had also been a rather lonely day for Class D leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. The rest of the Class D challenge had petered out on the Friday prologue, and on Racing Section 1, and Venter and Palmer were never under any pressure. Behind them, another little race cameo was being played out with early Class P leaders Archie Rutherford and Mike Lawrenson making up ground in the Regent Racing Jimco. They moved ahead of the Zarko of John Thompson and Zeldan Niemand, with veteran Bodo Berthold and Philip Herselman still soldiering along in their Atlas Copco bat, with the 68-year-old Berthold maintaining a proud record of never having missed a desert race. By contrast, Neil Meyer and Leon Miller were making their Botswana debut, but the pair had done a solid job in the MRZ trailer Zarko.
The Bloemfontein-based pair of Peter Ruthven and Rudy Brits had also done a solid job in the Rubicon Racing Toyota Hilux. The pair missed a couple of events early in the year, followed up with a couple of non-finishers, and this was by far their most impressive outing of the season. They were running ahead of Class B leaders Kutsia and Sandro Labuschagne, who also made a late start to the season in the Raconic Zarko. They had a healthy lead over the sister car in the hands of Gilnel and Jaco Jong, and the points would come in useful. Also trying to rescue points were the Polokwane crew of Naim Musaji and Rayan Badania, who had not enjoyed the best of races since winning the Donaldson Prologue.
There had been another change in Class E, where teenager Lance Woolridge on his first desert race and Ward Huxtable had gradually ground down the rest of the opposition in the Team Ford Ranger. It had been a gutsy performance from young Woolridge, with the Ford running ahead of the Regent Racing Nissan Navara of Terence Marsh and Bucks Carolyn, who were also going to be rewarded for their perseverance. Perseverance was also the name of the game for Land Rover pair Johan Steyn and Paul Jonker, who were way behind the Class D leaders but refused to throw in the towel. It was the same story with Gilnel and Jaco Jonker in the second Raconic Zarko, who were going to pick up points in Class B.
At the finish at Kumakwane, there was a rapturous welcome for production vehicle winners Hannes Grobler and Henny Terstegen, who had pulled off a remarkable victory in the RFS BMW X3. It was Grobler's sixth Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race victory and a first for Henny Terstegen and BMW. While Toyota's dream of a win lay in tatters, Hannes Grobler's legion of fans in Botswana were in ecstasy, with the local media converging on a triumphant local hero.
But the drama was not yet over, and it was Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst who were next to appear at the finish, much to the delight of the Visser family. The Toyota 1000 Desert Race sting in the tail had struck again, with Visser and Badenhorst passing Team Castor Toyota pair Duncan Foss and Rob Howie with less than 10 Ks to go. In a late race upheaval, the factory crew had to be content with a final place on the podium in a vehicle that was a little worse for wear.
To the victors, the spoils, and after the traditional podium ceremony, Hannes Grobler could hardly believe what he and Henny Terstegen had just achieved.
Definitely, it was an unbelievable event. It was a tough race, and Henny did a good job. The whole team did a good job, and I'm so glad we could pull off a win again here.
It was also a great result for privateers Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, with their championship lead given a big boost.
Yeah, no, we just thank Hannes for coming first, helping us a little bit with the championship, and yeah, it was not nice to see another competitor not alongside the road, but unfortunate for Duncan, but fortunate for us.
Despite intense disappointment at missing out on a long-awaited victory, there was an upbeat air in the Toyota camp.
Very happy. It's probably at this stage the biggest motorsport race in Africa. And I mean, we're very proud of it. We have very good partners here in Botswana. They're doing a very good job for us. They are on board and they support it 100%. And for that reason, you know, we sell about 30%, more than 30% of the cars in Botswana as Toyota. We have to support it. And everywhere we went, we just heard Hilux. So we're very happy.
One of Toyota's partners in the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race is the cellular service provider Mascom.
Absolutely. I think the Botswana tourism has latched onto this opportunity. It's a great tourist opportunity, but I think also as an alternative sport within Botswana for Botswana to get involved in, and you can see through the participation, through the crowds here, that the attendance has been great. And I think as Mascom, we're proud to be associated with.
production vehicle results with a 9-minute winning margin for Hannes Grobler and Henny Terstegen, with great performances from Class D winners Dion Venter and Ian Palmer and Class E winners Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable.
And that perfect weekend for Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau ended with a team total pair putting the finishing touches to a thoroughly professional performance in the special vehicle category. A brave effort took Cully and Quinton Silwart right into second place.
Victory for Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau earned them a place in Desert Race Folklore by taking a hat-trick of wins, with the three crews on the podium signing off by spraying the crowds with champagne, much to the delight of local photographers.
It's a grueling event. This morning we were the first special out, and I think thanks to my navigator for the strategy that we had, and we just went by it and it stuck by it and it worked out for us. So I think it's a team effort that brought this win.
Second place also kept alive Silwart Championship hopes, and as always, Cully Silwart was gracious in defeat.
And how nice it is, isn't it? We really enjoyed it. Tough race. We must congratulate the Botswana organisers, everyone that's been involved in it. What a good organised event. Tough, but that's the way we like it. That's why we do the All-Blacks.
A 2-minute victory margin for Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, and a string of fine performances from Class P crews who made up 5 of the cars in the top 10 in the special vehicle category.